Hi guys, welcome back to the process. I'm DJ Barry. Today we're looking at one of Asia's most interesting geopolitical thinkers, Kishore Mahbubani, and his argument that the global order is being rebalanced.
And I drowned in that arrogance that I could feel about how the West had arrived and succeeded, and the rest of you poor chaps, get used to it, adjust to it, move on. So the reason why that arrogance at that point was a major strategic mistake, because that arrogance put the West to sleep at precisely the moment when the other civilization decide to wake up. So you close your eyes when the rest of the world was waking up. And remember, China had started its 4 modernizations program in 1979, and by 1989, 1990 was gaining a lot of momentum. And so that clearly, that's why I think the end of the history moment was a disastrous moment for the West, because it put the West to sleep at precisely the moment when the rest was waking up. But there was another major strategic mistake that the West made once it felt that, okay, we're number one, we can run the world, we can do what we want to do. And of course, many in the West believe that the most peaceful, law-abiding civilization in the world is Western civilization. For us to get sensible and do the right thing, India went through major crisis and said, enough is enough, let's do the right thing. And of course, what you've seen since then, in the case of the Chinese civilization has been around for 4,000 years. And the last 40 years of economic and social development in China have been the best 40 years in 4,000 years of Chinese history. And the West said, cannot be. They're not like us. They cannot be succeeding, right? Because you assume to succeed, you must be liberal democratic. So that clearly, that's why I think the end of the history moment was a disastrous moment for the West, because it put the West to sleep at precisely the moment when the rest was waking.
I know you're wondering, who is Kishore Mahbubani? Well, Mahbubani spent over 30 years in Singapore's foreign service. He was ambassador to the UN, chaired the UN Security Council, and later became founding dean of the Lee Kuan Yew School. See, Mahbubani's first argument isn't that Asia is rising, but it's returning. See, for most of human history, India and China has been among the world's largest economies. And historically speaking, Western dominance is relatively recent. And whether you agree or not, the growth across Asia is real. It is happening. It is awesome. It is beautiful. But what do Africans learn from that? What can Africa learn from that? Can African countries strengthen their industries? Can they grow a middle class? Can they industrialize without losing their sovereignty? Those are the kind of questions we need to be asking ourselves. Those are the kind of questions we need to be asking our politicians. Those are the kind of questions our politicians should be asking themselves. As for the future of Africa, how does Africa grow? How does Africa develop? How does Africa create jobs? Like China did, like India did. Mahbubani's second argument though, is a bit more provocative. He believes that the West sometimes, or most of the time, misreads the changing world due to their ego, the way I perceive it, their ego and white supremacy ideology. Their superiority ideology that they're better, the political system is better with democracy, with blah blah blah, things of that nature. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys agree or disagree with Mahbubani's argument on that? So, in other words, due to their assumptions, they tend to make strategic mistakes. So, the question is not whether Africa should copy Asia, but I believe the real question is what can Africa learn from Asia's experience? Because if you look at countries across Asia, one thing becomes clear. In fact, look at their economy. I mean, economically, as I wanted to say. Excuse me. You look at their country's economy, and just their transformation. Clearly, it wasn't by accident. There was strategy to it. A country's strategic interest is very important to their sovereignty. You see, Asia built stronger institutions. They invested in education and infrastructure, development of the middle class, and eventually industrialization. But Africa has to be careful to not simply copy or model somebody else's uh, way of development, because you risk losing your sovereignty and or maybe just doing things the wrong way. So to answer my question, I believe as long as we can learn from their experience, learn to stabilize our economies without losing our sovereignty, our dignity, our culture, and being able to protect our strategic interests. For sure. And I think this is where things starts to get really interesting, because Africa is not just a continent with resources. It is becoming increasingly important to the future global economy. It has the population, or we have the population. Statistics show by 2050, the world's youngest population will be here in Africa. We have agricultural potential, massive agricultural potential. Land. We have natural resources, and we have some rare minerals that will be needed for the future generations of technology. You see, but the problem isn't just the thing isn't just about having resources. It's about being able to use those resources for economic power. So Africa has to make a choice. The leaders of Africa has to be employed. They have to be employed to make a choice for the population, for the people, for the citizens. By doing so, this is to all the leaders in Africa. I love Africa, which is why I'm doing this. You give people back their pride, their dignity of being from that sovereign country, from that country full of riches and culture and good food and traditions. We have to make a choice, and that choice. So yeah, we have to make a choice. Africa has to make a choice. Do we continue to export resources and raw material and import finished goods, or do we industrialize? Do we build our middle class? Create the goods here? Because finished goods doesn't create an economy, for a fact. We're not creating jobs for people here. Coca-Cola is not building a factory here like that. Not that many, you know. I mean, I'm just saying. No offense. But anyway, yeah. So, in conclusion to this episode, in order to accomplish those things, for Africa to be able to learn from Asia, like Mamu Bani said, it requires strong leaders who are willing to think beyond their next election, who are willing to actually think for the future generations of kids that will grow up there. Takes institutions, stronger institutions, infrastructure, education, building a strong middle class so people can have jobs to be able to feed their families and not have to worry about getting a visa to Europe or America or Europe, the States or something like that. Because there's a lot of people, they decide to even like cross their border, the Mediterranean, illegally die, because the Arabs there takes advantage of them as well. Some of them end up being modern day slaves to the Arabs. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and see you on the next one for sure. Please like, share, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe if it's your first time. And yeah, let's go.